Did you know that there's a simple formula you can use to create a great script? There is, and in this video, I'm going to break it down for you.
3, 2, 1.
Here we go!
Hi, and welcome to DIY Film with Merle Becker, the channel where I help you make better videos. At the end of the video, I've got a bonus filmmaking tip, so be sure to stick around. So let's talk about script writing. As we all know, every great film starts with a great script. And every great script, believe it or not, starts with the same structure. That's right. Let me repeat that. Every great script starts with the same structure. And that structure is called the 3-act story structure. Chances are most of your favorite films follow the 3-act story structure. In fact, the next time you're watching a movie, see if your favorite film is following it. All right, I'm going to explain to you how it works. So throughout this video, I'm going to be using the example of the Academy Award-winning screenplay for the movie Juno, which was written by Diablo Cody. If you haven't seen Juno, that's fine, but this is your spoiler alert, so if you want to watch the movie first, please do so. Okay, so what exactly is a 3-act story structure? A 3-act story structure is as follows. Act 1 is the setup, Act 2 is the confrontation, and Act 3 is the resolution. Let's break down each one of these. Act 1, the setup. In your setup, you introduce your characters. You talk about the things they care about. You show the audience their relationships, and you show what their world is like. So, for example, in Act 1 of Juno, we meet our main character, Juno McGuff. We find out that she's in high school and that she's independent and irreverent. And we also meet Juno's stepmother, her father, and her best friend, Leah. And we meet her friend Polly Bleeker, and we pick up on the fact that he's in love with her. But we realize that Juno just wants to be friends with Polly. And while he is totally in love with her, she's joking and casual and not really giving true love a second thought. So after the introductions, you need to create what is called an inciting incident. An inciting incident is something that confronts your main character. It's a big problem that they need to face. It's something that they must come to terms with. Your main character must now make a decision about what to do next. And in making this decision, it means that their life will no longer be the same. So in our example Juno, the inciting incident comes fairly early on in the film. At the very top of the movie, we realize that Juno is pregnant. And she knows that Polly Bleeker, whom she just considers to be a friend, is the father. So after introducing the inciting incident, your main character must make his or her life-changing decision. And once they make that decision, it always leads to a more dramatic decision, which is the first plot point. And the first plot point means the end of Act 1. So in Juno, she makes the decision to have the baby, but she also decides to give it up for adoption to a couple who is unable to have a child of their own. Polly is supportive, and Juno tells her family about her plan, as well as her friend Leah. So now, not only is Juno pregnant, but she must find suitable adoptive parents. And this is the first plot point, and the end of Act 1. Her decision to keep her baby and put it up for adoption leads us to Act 2. So now we're into Act 2. Act 2 is always characterized by confrontation. And Act 2 is usually the beginning of the rising action, or your main character's attempt to resolve the issue at hand. But typically in Act 2, things only get worse. And they typically get worse because the main character doesn't have the skills yet to deal with the problem at hand. But by the end of your story, they will, with the help of a mentor or a co-protagonist. That is what we call the character arc. But back to Act 2, the confrontation act. So in our example, Act 2 of Juno, she manages to find a nice couple to agree to adopt her baby after birth. Their names are Mark and Vanessa, and she finds them through an ad in the Penny Saver. Vanessa is totally devoted to becoming a mom, and Mark, he plays the guitar and he's into some of the same music as Juno, so they bond over that. Mark and Vanessa will be the perfect adoptive parents, it seems. And now we're at the midpoint of our script. Things seem to be well on their way to a resolution. Simultaneously though, Juno is wrestling with her feelings for Polly. She flippantly tells him to ask another girl to the prom because, as we know, Juno just wants to be his friend. But then Juno is jealous when he asks that other girl to the prom. Why? Now Juno isn't sure what she wants. And next, and maybe worst of all, Juno finds out that Mark has decided to leave Vanessa. He's leaving her because he says he's not ready to be a father. And Juno is too far along for an abortion at this point. And she also wants Vanessa to realize her dream of being the doting mom that Juno never had. What will Juno do about the baby? What will she do about Polly? And what will Vanessa do now that Mark is leaving her? Feeling alone and betrayed, Juno breaks down crying in her car. Everything is a total mess. We're now at plot point 2. And the beginning of Act 3, the resolution. So in Act 3, your main character's problems reach a climax. The climax is the most dramatic scene in your story. It's when the tensions are the highest. And after the climax, the dramatic question raised by the inciting incident is finally answered. And your main character now has a new sense of who they really are. So in our Juno example, Mark and Vanessa have now decided to divorce. Juno decides to go back to Mark and Vanessa's home to leave a note for Vanessa. The note says that she still wants Vanessa to become the parent if Vanessa still wants to adopt. And after a conversation with one of her mentors, her father, Juno also admits to herself that she really does love Polly. So she tells Polly. Then our big climax finally happens when Juno is rushed to the hospital to give birth. Juno has the baby and Vanessa adopts him. Now the baby has a loving parent. And Juno has internalized what true love is. Everything is resolved. Baby has a mama, Juno has matured, and now she recognizes that true love has been in front of her the whole time. So there you go, a breakdown with examples of how a 3-act story structure works. So now when you're trying to come up with your first script for your film or your short film, you have a little guide you can use to make an engaging film. All right, so let's review. Act 1 is the setup. Act 2 is the confrontation. And Act 3 is the resolution. Plot points happen at the end of Act 1 and Act 2, and a character arc runs throughout, giving your main character a new set of skills by the end of the movie. Alright, so let's take a look at the tip. So when you finally sit down to write that script, it is always helpful to have a visual representation of your story in front of you. Screenwriters often do this with post-it notes, and you can too. First, draw yourself a 3-act story structure timeline, and then make a post-it for each of your scenes as you go along. Place each post-it on the proper place on the timeline and move them as necessary. Doing this will not only ensure that you're sticking to a successful 3-act story structure, but it will help you see which scenes need to stay and which need to go. Because if you see a visual representation of your story, it will inevitably be clearer to you that some scenes are not really serving your story or getting you to the plot points. So enlist the help of some post-its today. And years from now, when you're up at the podium accepting your award, you can thank the Academy, your parents, and Office Depot for helping you create that perfect award-winning script. Okay, I think we've reached the end of Act 3 of our video for today. As always, if you found any of this helpful, please give the video a thumbs up, subscribe and hit the bell so you know when the next one is posted, and I will catch you next time.